Hello, hi, you're welcome to today's live stream. So, in today's live stream, we are looking at understanding children's emotions. And as we know, children can be very unpredictable, especially if you don't understand how their emotions work. And that is one of the problems most of us have as parents. Now, it will be important for us to know that our children is not giving us a hard time. They're not giving us hard time. Rather, they themselves are experiencing hard time. So, we welcome everyone. If you are here or if you are listening to this voice, it may be because you are deeply concerned about your child. So, and in this live stream, we are going to look at why children react emotionally. Why do children react emotionally? Then we will also look at the emotional development of children by ages. See, we will also look at emotional development of children by ages, and then common mistakes that parents make. That is in the means of raising their children. There are common mistake that parents makes, and then we will also like to entertain some questions, especially any question that may be posed by any parent here. Now, before we proceed, I would like to ask a question. Based on what are the ages of your children? I mean, for parents here, the ages of your children, I would like to know. Type it in comment section, and then we will continue. Why do children react emotionally? Why do our children react emotionally? Now, emotional reaction are developmental, not deliberate. You see, our children are growing, and as they are growing, their emotional capacity are also growing. Now, we know that every activity carried out by the human or human beings are being processed from the brain. Every activity, everything, both from the sight, every part of our senses, every action that pertains to human being emanate from the brain. You see, and the brain is the center of every interpretation of what goes on in the human body and the human mind and everything. Now, as children, their brain is still developing. As children, their brain is still in the developmental stage. So, and as the brain of children are still in the developmental stage, so the part of the brain that are responsible for emotion is the first to develop. So we call it um, amygdala. We call it amygdala. Amygdala is the part of the human brain that are responsible for emotion, and this is the first part of the brain of children to develop. Now, the thinking part or the self-control part develop much later, which is the prefrontal cortex. This pre um, this prefrontal cortex develop much later. Now, this makes it possible for children to feel emotion before they can start managing their emotions. Now, it makes it possible for us to know that our children are purely emotional beings because the amygdala is already developed. And as the amygdala is already developed, so that makes our children able to think. Sorry, that makes them able to feel emotions. So, and now these emotions that they feel and the thinking part and the self-control part is not that much developed. This one developed much later. So now this makes it for these children to have have feelings, you know different types of feelings of hungry, feelings of happiness, feelings of sadness, and some other things. In you see, so now as they have these feelings, but they cannot control these feelings yet. They have no control over the feelings yet. So this is just the very main reason why the main problem why our children are so emotional. Now we look at this at like having an engine without brakes, a powerful engine that can run, assuming a car. Let us use a car for example. And this car can be likened to our children's emotion, you know, because already they are feeling, they feel all these big emotions that we ourselves feels, you know, feelings like sadness, happiness, and others. So children feel all these things, but still there is no control. They have no control over these emotions. Even sometimes it's even hard for even parents, or let me say adults. It's even hard for sometimes for them to even control emotions. Yes, there are still adults with zero control over the emotions, or let me say some some amount of control, because you can't compare adults with children. You see, so that is that. So the children's emotions can be likened to a car, powerful car without brake. You see, which is the car can move, but there is no controls over the car. Number two, or the second point of this, emotions are felt in the body. Emotions are felt in the body. Children feel emotions like hunger, tiredness, overstimulations, happiness, etc. and etc. There's so many types of emotions that children feel. So, and when they feel these emotions, this emotion becomes overwhelming to them. Overwhelming because it becomes what they cannot what they cannot control, because they have no control over it yet. See, so when they feel these emotions, they are, they begin to exhibit these emotions the way they feel it. They begin to exhibit the emotion the way they feel it without control. So that is that. It is so overwhelming to them. Like an adult can say, an adult can explain or have some explanation for his emotions or her emotions. At least you can say, I'm tired, I'm angry, I'm hungry, I am happy, you see, and all these things with control over those emotions. But children, no. A child cannot mention what he or she is feeling. You only be able to show it through either crying or yelling or refusal, or laughter, or so on and so forth. See, so that is that. Now, lack of emotional language. Lack of emotional language. One of our ability to control emotion is the ability to identify these emotions. Because once you identify the emotion, validate the emotion, then the emotion can be controlled. But now, for children, they have no language for their emotions. Now, let us make it very clear that our being able to communicate our emotions makes us able to, to be able to control those emotions. Because when we are able to communicate, then we have less control over those emotions. So that is that. Now, we find it difficult, or children find it difficult, communicating those feelings of theirs. If they feel frustration, a child cannot explain it. Instead, the child will resort to crying. You see, if a child felt disappointment, the child may not be able to explain what he's feeling. Instead, the child may resort to crying. You see, if a child is afraid, the child will not be able to explain. The child can resort to crying or withdrawal. Therefore, because the child has no word to explain this behavior, to explain these emotions, the child will resort to behavior as their means of communicating their emotion. Therefore, dear parents, we need to listen to our child's behavior, pay serious attention on the child's behavior and action, because that's the way they can explain what they are feeling. Now, emotional reaction in children is communication and not manipulation. You see? So it is very wrong. It's very wrong for us to feel that our children are manipulating us by their action. It is not. It is never manipulation. Rather, it is communication. So when your child cries, or when your child withdraws, or do all sort of behavior, what we should come into your mind is, what is my child feeling like right now? What uh, how do I decode the action he or she is portraying? So that is that. Now, I know if you're a parent and you're listening to my voice now, you might have in one way or the other have your child crying without knowing the reason why your child is crying. So you might have come across such a behavior. The child is crying for no obvious reason, but you can't understand. And because the child cannot communicate these feelings, the only means is crying, crying, crying. Now, That is that. Now let us look at children's emotion and at different stage. That is emotional development of children at different ages of their life. Now, we start with the emotion of children 0 to 2 years. Emotional development of children that are 0 to 2 years. In children 0 to 2 years, their only communication is emotional communication is either crying or laughing or the such. No self-regulation. Sometimes they can borrow emotion from their parents. That is, they can remain calm because the mother is calm, or because the father is calm, they may remain calm. And sometimes, when they feel overwhelmed, they cry. Now, what mistake do parents make at this very particular stage? Expecting calmness or independence from these children is a serious mistake, because based on the age of that child, the child can't regulate his or her emotion, and the child is capable of being independent because the reasoning part of the brain is not yet developed. The reasoning part of the brain is not yet developed, but the emotional part of the brain is much more developed than the reasoning part of the brain. So at this very particular stage, what do the child need? They need comfort. The child needs comfort so as to feel less uncomfortable. The child needs to feel less uncomfortable, because feeling much uncomfortable will make the child to resort more in showing his emotions, which may not be quite comfortable for the parents. Then consistency in showing this comfort or making the child to be comfortable. You see, comfortable in terms of dress. What type of dress did you put the child on at this very moment? The child should be able to wear comfortable dresses, not dresses that will keep the child uncomfortable. You see, condition of playing, condition of surrounding, the condition of wherever the child is at this very stage. And the next is safety. The child should always be safe. Make it a point of duty that the child is always safe at this moment, so that there will be no need for this child to display unnecessary emotions. So that is that. Make sure that the child is contained and in a place where the child will be comfortable. Not a place where the child will not be comfortable or will not be safe. Because if the child is on a safe place and within a place that you feel unnecessary tension, the child will throw up unnecessary emotions. So that is that. Now, the age 3 to 5. Age of 3 to 5. Here is big feelings, no filter of emotions. Emotions here is getting more intense. The maturity of the emotional part of the brain is greater here, but the thinking part of the brain is not fully developed, but is greater than from 0 to 2 years. Here, emotion is very intense, and then control of these emotions is very weak because the child have seriously less control of over his emotions. And here is the tantrum stage, the stage of a tantrum, stage of tantrum. Now, the child can always throw tantrum in and there, out at this very particular stage. So, now, what common mistake, what common parenting mistake shall we throw up here? Now, mistake of threatening this child. That is where most parents make mistakes. Some threaten the child with, stop crying, stop yelling, and all sort of way that the parents think is going to control this child and make the child to be calm. But some of these, some of these, instead of controlling the situation, makes the matter worse. Now, some will resort to yelling to the child. It doesn't make sense because when a child is emotionally overwhelmed, the child can't listen to anything. The child can't hear anything you are saying at that very moment. He can't, the child can't understand anything at all. So the only thing that is better to be done at this stage is to calm the child first. After calming the child, when the child is comfortable and relaxed, then you can say what you want to say. That is the time the child can hear. Then, other common mistake most parents make is that they took to shaming the child, thinking that the shaming will do the control. But that is the other way around. You see, the shaming cannot do the control because the child thinking faculty is not is not yet matured. The thinking faculty is not yet matured. The thinking part of the brain is still not yet matured. Therefore, the child won't even understand anything. Now, how shall this be controlled? This can be controlled by what? Naming the emotion. Now, naming the emotion is a part of controlling the emotion. I can see you are very upset. Okay, but I won't let you hurt yourself. I would like you to be calm. Try and be calm, and later we talk. I can see you are angry. I won't let you hit, but I am here. So be calm. So these are some of the ways I see you are hungry. Uh, then let me get food for you to eat. So try and be calm. So these are simple ways of controlling these emotions. And then after naming the emotions, the next thing is just to create boundaries. I won't You are very upset, but I won't allow you to be rolling on the ground, dirtying your clothes. I want you to stand up from the ground. I am here. I'm here to make sure that you are okay, that you're better. I'm here to see that you are not upset again, so that you feel calm. So that's just a way of making the child feel better. And when the child feels better, the child can be controlled. The emotion can be controlled. So now let us look at ages of 6 to 9. The ages of 6 to 9. Here, the child is already grown. At least awareness is much more aware of his surrounding. You see, much aware of his surrounding. So here the child is beginning to understand the emotion. You see, at least the child is more advanced. The child's brain, both the emotional brain and the controlling brain, which is the thinking brain, are more developed than the two group of children that we just mentioned before. You see, but the child is now beginning to understand his or her emotions, but there is still struggle to regulate these emotions. There is still struggles because the child still can't it can't regulate the emotion to a larger extent, but at least it can be able to name the emotions. You see, but still, the child may still be sensitive to criticism. You see, it may still be sensitive to criticism. Therefore, you use less criticism style. Then, what are common mistakes of this very particular stage? Expecting adult level maturity. So, expecting adult level maturity. So that the child is already 6 to 9. The brain, the thinking part of the brain is not fully matured. You see? But the emotional part of the brain here is much matured. And the child can still be able to control his emotion to some extent. But what we have here is the child still needs some coaching. He needs some emotional coaching. It needs for you to help him to understand his emotions the more. You need to understand his emotional capability here more. You see? So the child needs more reassurance, reassuring him of his well-being. You know, we make the child to feel more better. You see? So that will make the child to feel more better, more control, and more reassurance. You see? So that is that. That is that. Emotional coaching here. What do we mean by emotional coaching? It's just a greater, the greater phase of naming the emotion. Because once you're able to name the emotion and the child will be able to understand the emotion, I think a problem identified is half solved. You see? Because even in ordinary lifestyle, if you don't understand the problem, solving that problem is much more harder. But when you understand the problem, you can be able to, you know, you can be able to solve the problem, at least in a way. Now, the assurance. Now we come to the age of 10 to 12, age of 10 to 12 plus. Now, this is the teenage. The more advanced, kids stage. Here, the hormonal changes have also added to the emotional imbalance. You see, the hormonal changes. Here is the stage of adolescence. And the stage of adolescence is a very critical age in children that need more supervision, more awareness, more interest in their activity than the other stages. So here there is much mood swings, you see, due to these hormonal changes, hormonal imbalances. It makes them to be more mood swings. So now, this very stage, there is more desire for independence. There's more desire for independence because of children reaching this age, these teenagers, they aspire independence, but this independence still need much connection. It still need to be more interested in their activity without much interference within this teenage period of children's growth. There is need for connection without much interference, because when you interfere much in their activity, they will see it as obstruction. But through connection, they may feel much relaxed and be able to be able to bear their minds more with you than seeking much more independence. Connection, being connected with the child emotionally, will make this independence to it will reduce it to some barest minimum, you see. But without connection, the child's independence here grow more. And then if the independence grow more, in short, more children get into wayward lifestyle without their parents being aware within this very particular age, because they associate with their peer, they associate with the outside world, and all these things. And every interaction and every whatever the child sees, every interactions shape the behavior of these children. You see, that is why at each stage of a child's life, the parent need more connection than ever. Instead of your child being connected much emotionally and physically with outsiders that will influence this child upbringing, let them be more connected with you emotionally and physically, because you will be able to impact much better lifestyle on this kid than what they will meet out there. So common mistakes some parents will make here the common mistake some parents will make here is what? Emotional distancing. For you to distance yourself here emotionally is very wrong, or will be disastrous, because just like I said before, interaction with the outside world will have effect on this child. And then communication with the peers and connection with the peers will also be affecting this child to some extent. So that is why you need to be much more connected to the child at this very particular moment. So that is that. Now, what helps more here? What helps more here is constant listening. You listen more to the child here. You listen more to the child here than lecturing. Here is where many parents fail. You want the child to be able to carry out the activity you want, or to live the way you want the child to be, and then without listening more to understand much about what is influencing this your child, that will be a terrible mistake some parents will make. It will be a very costly mistake, you see. So just like we mentioned, in this very particular stage, you need connection. Even as much as the child desire independence here, because teenagers aspire for independence. They don't have much attachment to their parents like the other stages of children's lifestyle. You see, because children less than 10 years down feel much attached to their parents than teenagers. You see, they feel less attached. But that notwithstanding, feeling feeling much attached is better controlled by increasing the connection you have with your child at this very particular stage. Increase the connection and make sure you listen more, and then you lecture less, teach the child less, because you have to understand more for you to know what you're teaching. You see, you have to understand more, because if you don't understand more without teaching, that will be very, very disappointing. That will be very, very disappointing. Now, I would like to ask this question, and I would like you to tell me what uh, you know or your experience in the comment section. Tell me your experience in the comment section. Now, at what age group challenges the most, or challenges children most? At what age group does children have more challenge emotionally? I would like to hear your own experience in the comment section. So now we go on. Common parenting mistakes. Common parenting mistakes. These are the mistakes most parents do in the name of parenting their children. You see? And sometimes these mistakes are being made without the parents realizing his mistake. Now, punishing emotion. Emotion is an outburst within these children. You see, it's an outburst within these children. It's overwhelming to them. For them, it is hard for them to control these emotions. So now, a parent punishing this emotion is a mistake. You see, because At this very particular stage, just as we have mentioned, that the thinking part of the brain is not yet matured. You see, it's only the emotional part. Therefore, and these emotions became so overwhelming to these children that they have nothing more to do than to let these emotions flow. So now, instead of parents trying to calm the condition or make the child, trying to bring the child under control, most parents will resort to punishing this emotion. That is a wrong. That is a wrong one from these parents. No need of punishing emotion. Try to calm the situation. Try to bring the situation under calm first, before you talk of punishment. So that is that. Punishing emotions is a wrong one. Now, some parents will start shouting, "Stop crying. I will give you something to cry for." When you are shouting, "Stop crying," the child won't even be able to hear, because the outburst of the emotion won't even give the child the chance to listen to what you are saying. You see? So the only language the child will be able to hear well here is calming him down or her down, and bringing the child under control. That's the only emotion that the child will be able to hear here. The only language the child will be able to hear here well. Or some will say, "I will give you something to cry about." So giving you something to cry about is punishing this child. Now, punishing this child is just like we said, it's a mistake, because the child won't learn anything from here. And let us mention here that the best parenting style is making sure that your child learn at any stage. Make sure that your child is learning at every stage. Whatsoever interaction you do with your child, let it be something for your child to learn from. So punishing emotion will not have any impact on this child. So now, punishing this emotion teaches the child to hide emotions and not to manage the emotion. And let me tell you, psychologically, that hiding emotion is one of the worst decisions any human being can make, because one day the emotion is going to explode, and when it explodes, it will backfire. Therefore, hiding of emotion is a very wrong decision. So don't punish emotion. Punishing emotion makes the child to hide those emotions. And when the child hides the emotions, those emotions are not managed. They are just covered, which may just explode any day. And exploding will mean exploding will show a very bad, outcome. The explosion of this will be a very bad outcome. Now, mistake number two some parents make in this very moment is taking the behaviors personal. Taking the behavior personal. Some will say, "You are embarrassing me." How will the child that is not thinking, that is just feeling and cannot control his feelings, how can the child be embarrassing you? The child is moreover more or less embarrassing him or herself, but the child has no idea of such embarrassment, whether to you or to him or her. Therefore, to this child, he just don't know how to control how he or she is feeling. Therefore, he lets the emotion flow. So for you, taking it personal is a wrong decision. Or some say, "Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me?" The child is not aware that he is doing anything to you. is not aware of such. So for you to be shouting or crying, why are you doing this to me? It's not what the child will understand. Now, and what are the effects here? The effect here is that the thing is shift the focus away from the child's need, because whenever a child is emotional or crying, there is a need that is attached to it, and that is what the child is trying to communicate. Whenever a child is crying, or if a child is crying for anything, there is a need that the child is trying to communicate, but he or she can't communicate it with words yet. Therefore, letting the outburst of emotion. Therefore, for you, feelings that the child is attacking you, or embarrassing you, or trying to disgrace you, is simply shifting the focus from this child's need. You see, you are simply shifting the focus away from this child's needs, because if you don't shift the focus from this child's needs, you'll be able to attend to this child's to this child's need, and then the source of the emotional outburst will be controlled. You see, if it is done like that, the source of the emotional outburst will be controlled. So what do we do wrong here? For we to assume that the child you know is attacking you, that is shifting responsibility. You are shifting responsibility, and therefore making the child vulnerable, because the source of this emotional outburst is not controlled. Therefore, the child becomes more confused, and then the child will even cry the more. So he become more confused, therefore he will cry the more. So that is mistake number 2. Then mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is talking too much during meltdowns. Talking too much when the child's brain is being overwhelmed. Then, if the child's brain is being overwhelmed, will he listen to these lectures? Will he listen to these words? That is another side of it. The child will not have the chance to listen to these words or to understand what you mean. You see? And if the child doesn't have if the child can't listen to this and understand, there is no need of talking too much. You see? So here, the logic does not work. Logic cannot work. The child cannot understand anything. Therefore, the first thing first here will be to calm the condition down. Find a way to calm the condition. You see? So, after calming the condition, later you do the teaching or the talking. Then the child will be able to absorb. You'll be able to absorb your teaching, or be able to listen to your words. Then the child will be able to hear you and understand what you are saying. Therefore, at this very particular stage, there is no need of much logic. There is no need of much words. There is no need of much lecturing. Those things are not going to yield fruit. It's not going to yield fruit. So that is that. Now, what will work instead? What will work instead what works is, we look at this list story, this list. Stay calm. Stay calm. Your ability to be calm will be transferred to this child. You see, your ability to be calm will be transferred to this child. The child will look at your calmness, and then he will begin to be cool, and then he may like to listen to you. So instead of too much talking, instead of too much shouting, instead of too much, instead of you pouring out your own emotions in addition to the child's emotional outbursts, try to stay calm. Try to bring yourself under control. Then identify the feelings. Identify the feelings that this child is battling with. Identify the feeling first. When you identify the feeling, validate the feeling. What is it that you think that this child is going through? What is it that you think that this child is going through? Validate it. Know what the feeling is. You see, I know you are angry. I know you are hungry. I know you are happy. Something like that. Identify what this child is going through. Identify what the feelings is. So from identification of these feelings, you name the feelings. You see, I know you are upset, but I won't let you hurt yourself by crying too much. But I won't let you to continue shouting like this. So from validation of feelings, we go over to the next, which is set limits kindly. Set limits kindly. You can't continue crying like this. It is not healthy for you. You see, it's not healthy for you to continue crying like this. You see, I know you are upset, but it won't make sense. It won't make sense if you continue to worry yourself like this. I would like you to be calm. I would like you to, you know. So let us talk about what is the problem. First of all, bring the child under control, and then after you might have bring the child's emotions under control, now we can now talk about teaching the child when the emotion is fully settled. Yeah. Now here the emotions is being brought under control. You can now begin to explain to the child, and then the child will listen and understand. So the child will listen and understand. So here I would like to here I would like to I would like to ask you to share your child's age and behavior challenges. So if there's any problem after listening to this after listening to this message, to this live stream, so share your child's age that the child experience. So then we will know how to offer corrections for all this. You see, so type in the comment section. Now in our final message, we want to make it clear that understanding emotion is not the same as permissive parenting. And I'm sure we all know what permissive parenting is. In a situation whereby a parent does not control the child's action, or the the parent let the child do whatsoever he wants. There's no control. No, that is not the same thing as understanding emotions. You see, now there is still a difference between controlling this emotion and controlling bad behavior. Maybe in one of the topics we are going to treat, the difference between tantrums and bad behavior in greater details, so that we understand the difference between both of them, because they are not the same. Tantrums and bad behavior in children is not the same. Therefore, understanding emotions is not the same as permissive parenting. Understanding emotion is know the difference between when your child is in emotional outburst and when your child is showing bad behavior. Now, this understanding emotions is connected leadership in the other way around, because when you are connected, you understand your child better. You understand your child's emotional condition at each stage, and you are able to differentiate these emotional conditions between when the child is deliberately acting wrongly, you see, and thereby when the child is acting wrongly, you'll be able to set clear boundary and make sure that the child abide by those boundaries, you see. But if emotions is involved, the first thing to do is to calm the emotions, bring the emotions under control before you can do anything, because before you can offer any any correction. So that is that. Now, um we want to finish by saying that children don't need perfect parents. Children don't need perfect parents, which means don't worry yourself trying to be that perfect parent to your children, or trying to be perfect in everything, but only try to understand the emotional needs of your kid. Try to understand the emotional needs of your child at every instance. At every instance, understand the emotional needs of your child. You see, and when you understand the emotional need of your child, you will be able to differentiate between bad behavior and every other action that this child will show. So now, I would like to tell us that we have come to at the end of this live stream. So we have come to the end of this live stream, which is we have come to the end of this live stream, which is understanding our children's emotions. What parents need to know. So this is exactly what parents need to know about understanding our children's emotions. So, and just like we said, if we have any confusing part of this live stream that we mentioned here as pertain to your child, you can just type it in the comment section and let us look at it together. And if you listen to this and then you feel drawn to it, please, I would like you to subscribe, because we have the mandate of making sure we spread messages about parenting and raising emotional strong children that's emotional balance, because our future as a country, our future as a people depend more on the type of children that we raise, you see. And just like as we always know that the children we raise made a part of the society we are in. You see, the family, which is the parents and the children, is the smallest unit of any society. See, and the quality of the society, the quality of the majority of the families in a very particular society make that society either good or bad. Therefore, we have a mandate of raising responsible children that will make our society to be a quality one. Therefore, subscribe to this channel, and we want to grow this channel to let the channel spread so that we can equip our parents or different parents with quality knowledge they need to raise responsible children that will make our society better. Thank you for having time for this live stream. Please do subscribe and then share this message or share this live stream so that other parents will be able to hear about it and benefit from it. Thank you so much, and thank you so much.